So then let's start the session. So students, we are in the business environment subject and we are progressing with the chapter 2 actually, business environment and its effect on business organizations, right? So in the previous sessions, we have covered about a business is an open system. Like we are getting some inputs from outside and we are processing with interconnected subsystems within organization and we are getting the output. And entropy concept, it's about if an organization it's not looking about their environment, business environment, they will collapse. That's simply an entropy concept. And synergy concept means when we are working together, we can achieve something bigger than individually, right? So that's something mean of 2.1 we have covered, and we have defined business environment. It's like any activities or any factors that are influencing our day-to-day business activities. We can consider that as a business environment. And that business environment we have classified as internal environment as well as external environment, and especially in the external environment, task environment and macro environment. The task environment consists of factors that even if it is external, we are working with them in a daily basis, like our customers, competitors, right? Those kind of stuff. But macro environment is like PESTLE, political, economical, social, cultural, technological, like that. So those classifications we have done, and after that we did a classification of microenvironment. So the word microenvironments, it belongs to internal environment as well as with task environment. Usually this internal environment, it consists of company values, company's internal cultures, organizational structures, their human resource, whatever within the organization, any resources. With a task environment, we will consider that as a micro environment, and macro environment, especially the PESTLE environment. It consists of political and legal, economic, technology, social, culture, natural, global, demographics. So these are macro environment. And we have explored about stakeholders of a business. Stakeholders means the people who are interested in our business activities. It can be a people within our organizations. We consider them as an internal stakeholders, owners, managers, and employees. And there are other parties, external stakeholders like suppliers, customers, society, government, creditors, competitors, right? So these are the stakeholders. And after that, we have compared the internal versus external environment. The main important distinction between these people are in the internal environment, actually, we have the ability to control. We have the ability to control the factors. We can control our manager, we can control our employees, even we can control our business culture and what we are valuing in the company, right? We can reorganize our company's organizational structure, management structure, right? Everything we have the control within an internal environment, but external environment, we cannot control the government decisions, the political stability, right? The interest rates the central bank is charging in the loans and giving in the savings accounts, right? We cannot control the interest rates, we cannot control the inflation rates, we can't control as a business, but still it will impact in our business organization, right? How, in Sri Lanka the culture is there, the social cultural, right? The technology movement we cannot control. The artificial intelligence is taking most of the people jobs in the near future. We cannot control that. We don't have control. So the factors uncontrollable by business, at the same time, it will create some business opportunities as well as threats. So the key point is here, from the external environment, right? Okay, there's a question from Zahra. Sir, is owners controlled? I didn't understand actually the question. Please, can you a little bit elaborate this? So, my dears, in the external environment, it sometimes it will create opportunities, sometimes it will create threats. But within the internal environment, it can be our strength or it can be our weakness. So you have to identify the correct word here. From the internal environment, it means from our managers, from our employees, from our values, from our organizational culture, from our management structures, from our owners' financial ability, our employees' talent, our team management skills. It can be a strength or it can be a weakness. But from the external environment, there's a new technology is coming. It can create sometime opportunities or sometime it will threats your business, right? So honor is internal environment, right? So are they controlled? It means, as I mentioned earlier, honors are internal for sole proprietorship. But for a private limited companies, actually they are in external environment, right? So honors is, if it is an internal environment, it means honors in the sense it's not applicable for a single person. It's applicable for the shareholders, right? The shareholders' decision they can control. Somehow they can control, right? But external environment, the factors are uncontrollable. Don't think very deeply. This is just simple the concept, right? So this is the comparison we did. So you understood about the internal environment will create the strength and weaknesses, and the external environment will give you opportunities as well as threats. That's more than enough, right? And let's talk about the stakeholder mapping. You know about stakeholder? These are people interested in our business information, right? So let's talk about the stakeholder mapping. So what's the definition of this stakeholder mapping? You know, my dears, it assists in understanding stakeholder influence by recognizing their expectations and power as well as support. So what we are going to do is it's a kind of tool to understand which stakeholders are most important and how we can manage them. So this stakeholder mapping, I'll introduce you this stakeholder mapping. It will help us understand who has the power over your business, who is very much interested in your business, and how to prioritize your attention, the most attention to which category of stakeholders, right? So stakeholder mapping assists in understanding the stakeholder influence by recognizing their expectations, their power, and the support. That's stakeholder mapping, right? So it's actually, we mentioned the Mantelow's power versus interest matrix. So it will help prioritize management strategies, right? So let's talk about this Mantelow's powers or interest matrix. It classifies stakeholders based on their level of interest and the power. So Mantelow's power interest matrix, this is the actual Mantelow's stakeholder mapping. You know, my dears, it's a diagram that shows stakeholders into these four groups: A group, B group, C group, and D group. Four groups based on their power. Here, this is power, and this is level of interest levels. You know, think of it like organizing the guests for a wedding. Some are VIP guests, like parents, right? High power, high interest. In your wedding, they have the high power and they have the highest interest. So they are VIP people. But some just need information. So it's a low power, higher interest people, like very distant relatives. They have high interest, but they don't have power with your marriage. Some need to be kept happy, like the venue owner, right? High power, low interest. Some need minimal attention only, like the flower delivery person. Like that, we are categorizing our stakeholders into these four groups. Where for the A groups of stakeholders, we have to give minimal effort. We don't need to give much attention, minimum attention for these A category people, because from the interest wise also they are having low interest. In the power also, they have the low power over our business. So we have to give minimum effort for them. For the B category, we have to keep informed. Since they have the highest interest but low power, so we have to keep informed them. I'll explain to you one by one separately. And the C category, we have to keep them satisfied because they have the high power, but interest wise, it's low. So we have to keep satisfied. The D players, they are the key players. We have to give them most attention because they have the highest interest in our business as well as they have the highest power in our business. Let me explain one by one right now. Okay. So let's talk about the minimal effort category. It means the low interest with a low power category, minimal effort, right? So, what this means, minimal effort means minimal attention is required because they don't have much power over to control your business. At the same time, they don't have much interest with your business also. So, we have to keep them at our minimal attention. So, let's talk about a little bit. It means we have to spend least time on them. They have low power and low interest. For example, the person who delivers, for example, paper to some printing shop, right? So they doesn't care much about the business, right? They can't influence on our major decisions. He's just a delivery boy, right? We are doing a printing business. He's just delivering the paper. So we don't need to care about them because they don't have much interest with our business as well as they don't have much power. But still they are interested. Why? Because they have to deliver the papers on time. So we have to give minimal effort, minimal time for these people because they can't influence in our major decisions making. Right? So minimal effort people. And let's talk about keep informed. The B category people, they have the low power, but they have the high interest. Regularly informed about the company decision. For example, the community groups. Let me talk about this keep informed people. Stakeholders with a low power but a highest interest. So we have to keep them updated. We have to inform them regularly about our company's decisions, right? For example, if you are running a factory, the community groups, the society near your factory, because they're very interested in your pollution level, right? Because they are in your neighborhood, right? They are watching your factory, what you are doing, right? Are you harming the environment, right? They are watching. So we have to keep informed. Regularly, we have to inform them. Very interested in the pollution levels. But they can't directly change our operations. They don't have much power. But they can create bad publicity. If we ignore them, if we are not informing them, we are not damaging the environment and everything. Sometime they will create bad publicity for our organization. So we have to keep them informed, right? That's the strategy we are following for them. At the same time, the C category that keeps satisfied. They have the high power, but they don't have interest with our business activities. We have to keep them satisfied to prevent potential problems. Sometimes, if they get so much of interest with their power, they can influence. For example, institutional shareholders, a biggest number of shareholders, right? Institutional shareholders means the general public holding 100 shares, 200 shares, 1000 shares, like, we have to keep them satisfied. Sometimes they will get interested, then they will utilize their power, right? So the strategy is we have to keep satisfied. Example, institutional shareholders like pension funds, insurance firms. Like, let me explain this a little bit more. In this section, my dears, this keeps satisfied. It means the lower interest people, but higher power people, like pension funds owning shares, for example, in some public companies. Usually, they don't interfere, but they could cause some problems if they're unhappy, right? Like major institutional shareholders. It means the people who are having the major shares, right? They can wind up the company within 2 3 decisions because they have the majority of shares. And let's talk about the key players who are having the highest interest and the highest power. The most important stakeholders with higher power and the higher interest. They need most attention. Major important stakeholders are here. They actively involve in our strategic decisions. So there may be our investor, right? So maybe the bank giving a huge loan for our factory. At the same time, maybe the government regulator for our financial company, the central bank. So we have to give the most attention for them. So this is how we are separating our stakeholder base and giving them a strategical attention, who are having the minimal effort, who are having keep informed only, keep satisfied, and the key players, right? So this is stakeholder mapping. So let's talk about the stakeholder relations. What this means, how to manage these relationships with each stakeholder group, right? For the keep satisfied people, right? For the C category people, requires careful management to avoid conflicts. We have to keep satisfied. Since they have the highest power, lowest interest, we have to keep them satisfied, right? Then only we can avoid problems. And the segment B, we have to regular communication, right? Because they have the highest interest but the lower power, right? And the A category people, least significant, minimal resource allocation. We don't need to give them attention, but the key players, we have to give the 100% of our attention. So this is the Mentalow's power versus interest matrix, right? I hope so. You got the point. So let's go to the importance, right? Importance of the matrix. Why it is important? Since it's defined the strategy by categorizing stakeholders by power and interest, right? How, what kind of strategy? We know to which people we have to allocate our most attention, right? Whether we have to just give the information, or we have to keep them satisfied, or we have to give them minimal effort. So we are allocating our time and attention and our projects, right, in a strategical way. At the same time, it helps the managers helps manage stakeholder relationship very effectively, because with our limited time and with the limited resources, we have to manage them effectively. And it guides strategic decisions by highlighting influential stakeholders. The influential stakeholders are the A category people, key players. At the same time, they keep satisfied people, right? So this is the importance of the matrix, right? So that's all about the stakeholder mapping you have to understand. That is from 2.4. And let's talk about the 2.5, that is business environment analysis. You know the classification. So the classification, it can be internal environment or external environment. Within the external environment, there may be task environment as well as macro environment. Otherwise, we can classify as a micro environment and macro environment. In the micro environment, it includes internal plus task environment. Now, how we can actually analyze this? So there are some methods, some tools and methods to study and understand our business environment very systematically. As I mentioned earlier, it's like a doctor examines a patient. Business also needs some tools to examine our business environment, how it influences, how it impacts, right? So let's learn two important tools, that is SWOT analysis and PESTLE analysis. right? So the SWOT analysis, the S for strength, W for weakness. As you know very well, strength and weakness, it can it can be raised from the internal environment, and the opportunities and threats, it is coming from the external environment. So the SWOT analysis is, we are going to analyze strength and weaknesses from our internal environment, from our managers, from our owners, from our values, from our organizational culture, from our management structures, from our vision statement. We will identify our strengths and weaknesses, and we will try to keep our strengths more and more, and we will try to reduce our weaknesses and make them strength. Same time, we will identify our opportunities and threats from the external factors. If we identify opportunities, we will utilize them. The positive side of external impact. And the negative side of external impact is threats. We have to reduce it. We have to manage it. So positive side of internal, it's strength. Negative side of internal, it is weakness. Right? So let's analyze it, and let's think about in the note section. If it is a favorable thing and it is from internal environment, that is strength. Right? At the same time, it is an adverse thing. It means the bad impact, adverse impact, and it is from internal environment. We call it as weaknesses. So strength and weakness is actually coming from internal environment. And from the external environment, if it is a favorable situation, we call it as opportunities. At the same time, if it is from external environment, but the situation is adverse for the company, that's a threat for the organization, right? So this is the technique for analyzing. You know, we will identify the strengths, that is the positive side of internal. We will identify the weaknesses, that is the negative side of internal. We will identify the opportunities, that is the positive side of external. We will identify the threats, and that is the negative side of external. So let's talk about the definition now. The strengths from the SWOT concepts, organizational characteristics that is aiding our goal achievement. It means what the business does well. Sometimes if you are running a restaurant, your strength is you have excellent chef, right? You are in the prime city location. You have the good reputation. Is everything from internal, my dear. So that is the strength for you, the positive side of your internal business. At the same time, weaknesses, organizational characteristic obstructing the goal achievement, right? It means what the business lacks or does very poorly. Example, in your restaurant, you have the very small seating capacity. There's no parking space for the customers. You have very limited menu. These are the weaknesses. This is from your internal environment. From the strength as well as weakness, you have the control. You can keep the strength more and more, and you can make this weakness, right, and reduce the weakness, and you can convert this weakness to the strength also. You have the control because these strengths and weakness are from internal environment, right? Same time, think about the opportunities. These are the favorable external situations. It means this is good external situation. Business can utilize this. These are opportunities, right? For example, if you are running a restaurant, right, there is a new office complex opening nearby your location. So you have the opportunity because that though they can become your customers, right? And if you are running a restaurant in that area, there is a growing food delivery trend. People are buying online delivery. So that's an opportunity for you. There is a tourism site increasing in your physical location area. So those are some favorable external situations. But at the same time, the threats, unfavorable external situations, bad external situation that could harm your business. There's a new competitor opening a new restaurant, right? Sometimes the food costs are rising, economic recession. You don't have the control over these opportunities as well as threats. Anyhow, you have to manage it. So these are the strengths. So strengths are organizational characteristics that is aiding. Aiding means helping goal achievement. Weaknesses means these are the organizational characteristics, but it's obstructing the goal achievement. It's breaking our goal. And the opportunities is a favorable external situation, and the threats are unfavorable external situation. Short and sweet, right? So that's it all about the SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis means we are going to analyze our internal environment as well as external environment to identify our strengths and weaknesses from the internal environment and the opportunities and threats from the external environment, and make strategies for those strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. That's it in practical. And let's talk about PESTLE analysis, right? So before that, let's see one question here. It is actually question number 6 from 2025 January. Already we have done the A question that detailed 3 advantages of a public limited company. Now we are going to look at the B questions. Assess the business environment of aerial textiles using SWOT analysis, right? So that's the question, right? They're asking the SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis means we have to analyze the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Assess the business environment of aerial textiles. So first you have to know what does means by strength and weakness within the organization. If they're talking about the owners, if they're talking about the managers, if they're talking about the employees and the organizational culture, management structure, right, financial capital capacity, in a good manner, those are strength. No, there is a problem with the owner. There is no skills for the owners. Managers are not doing well. Employees are not talented. There is a bad organizational culture, right? This is a weakness. And if they're talking about the opportunities, like, there is a new festival is coming, that is from social cultural opportunity. There is a new technology that will speed up the process. That is opportunity from the technology side. There is a good political policies coming. There is a kind of favorable laws are passing by the government. So those are opportunities. If it is a threat, a new competitor is coming. That's a threat from task environment, that is from external environment. Okay, there is a shortage of materials and suppliers are not delivering the goods at time, right? So those are the threats. So simply you can read and understand. Let's see what's happening here. Ariel started a sole proprietorship as Ariel Textiles, and it is engaged in garments items for kids, right? So they have started as a sole proprietorship, single person control and owner, as Ariel Textile. So this is actually in the brand name, not with the owner's name. No, Ariel is the owner name, right? So Ariel Textile, it is actually in the owner name. And it is engaged in garments items for kids, small people. So he is considering to expand its operations to export market. It means for the foreign market. He has hired a consultant to convert the business as a public limited company, not just a private limited company. He is considering to convert the business as a public limited company for raising more capital and to identify the challenges of the business. Now he has 4 factories in Sri Lanka and skilled labor force. Right. Now think about this. He has a 4 factories and skilled labor force. Is it a strength or weakness, my dears? Within his organization, he has the capacity to produce in 4 factories. So this is actually a strength. And also his labors are very skilled. This is talking about strength. At the same time, established supplier relationship. So suppliers are in the external environment, in the task environment. And also there is a well-established supplier relationship. It means they know when they will order, when we have to deliver, our terms and our conditions. They know about our business. There's a good relationship. So that is an opportunity. That is from external environment, as well as a strong customer base. Customers are in the external environment, actually in the task environment. And also they have strong customer base, right? So these are the opportunities. So now he has 4 factories in Sri Lanka, skilled labor force, established supply relationship, and a strong customer base facilitated to grow his business. However, so there's a trick, there is a twist. However, due to limited financial resources, right, within the company, they have the limited financial resource. So this is going to be the weakness. They don't have enough funds. and dependence on a few key customers. It means the majority of the customers are purchasing. It means from the total sales value, 60 to 70% are just with the three customers. If we lose that customers, our 60-70% of sales are done. We don't have sales. So this is actually a threat because customers are in the external task environment and a lack of IT knowledge. Who has IT knowledge? Employees. Even though he has a skilled labor force, he has an employee with a lack of IT knowledge because they are, factory people. So that's actually going to be the weakness because within the organization, employees are there. And also the business has faced challenges when expanding its business. There is a demand for ladies' garments items in some Europe countries. So this is actually an opportunity. It is come from global environment, right? There is a demand for the ladies' garment items. He is planning to diversify his businesses to many garment items, understanding the demand in the world while adhering to sustainable practices. So he is now only doing the garments items for the kids. Now he knows there is a demand for the ladies' garments in the Europe countries. So he is planning to diversify his business not only for the kids and for the other people's garment items also, right? Further, cost of production has increased drastically due to depreciation of rupee, right? Depreciation of rupee means the dollar we are going to receive for rupees. For example, if for the moment, if we are giving 300 rupees for $1, and if it is like we have to give 400 rupees for $1, then the rupee value is depreciated against the US dollar. So that is going to be the problem. That is in the economic environment, exchange rates problem. So that is going to be the threat actually. So due to economic downturns, consumer spending also reduces in Sri Lanka, right? So economic downturns, that is an economic factor, and consumer spending, that is also an economical factor, and also this is creating the threats for the business. And rising competition from domestic and international changes. Competition, that's a threat in fashion trends and supply chain disruptions caused by factors such as natural disasters. So natural disaster from natural environment and political instability from political and legal environment. And trade restriction and labor shortages impact the business of aerial textiles. There are a lot of weaknesses, a lot of strengths, a lot of opportunities, a lot of threats. So the consultant has identified the importance of logistics in the garment manufacturing industry. Efficient transportation, warehousing, and inventory management are very crucial for ensuring timely delivery of product to customers. An aerial textile must carefully consider the factors such as transportation, warehousing, cost, and inventory management techniques to minimize the logistical challenges. So now, will you able to write the SWOT analysis for the 6 marks, my dears? Do you have the confidence now? Amar, Azam, Danu, Kiflam, Halina, Haiba, right? Very simple questions. So let's see the answers, how they have answered this question. Here, see. A similar assessment with adequate factors is sufficient to secure full marks. Explanation and presentation in a table format is not necessary. You don't need to present your answers like this. Just write it one by one. So strength is here, establish its supplier relationship, right? Skilled labor force, strong customer base, existing manufacturing facilities, being appropriate ability to make quick decisions, right? Actually, they are doing some mistakes here as well. Establish its supplier relationships. You can write with opportunities as well, but it's better to write in the supplier relationship because companies keeping the supplier relationship, even though they are external parties, companies putting effort with the supplier relationship. So it is actually a strength. It means management values the relationship, and they have the skilled labor force, that is a strength. Strong customer base, they have created a strong customer base with their internal effort, so we can put that as a strength, no problem. And existing manufacturing facilities, there are 4 factories, that's a strength. and being a proprietor, ability to make quick decisions. Since they are having sole proprietorship now, they can take the quick decision. So this is strengths. And weaknesses is, as I mentioned earlier, limited financial resources. They are depending on the few key customers and lack of IT knowledge. And the opportunities are the demand for the ladies' garment in European countries and potential for diversification into other garment items, a growing global emphasis on sustainable practices, potential to leverage the IT for the improved operations and market reach. See the threats, negative consequences of the foreign exchange, rising competition from domestic and international players, changes in the fashion trends, supply chain disruptions, decreased consumer spending due to economic downturns, increased cost of production, vulnerability to economic downturns, and low customer spending in garments, natural disasters, depreciation of rupee trade restriction, labor shortage. So you don't need to write this much, just write it simply, right? So this is how they will test the SWOT analysis if they are going to test with you, right? So this is all about SWOT analysis. So let's go with the PESTLE analysis. So what is this PESTLE means? P for political, E for economic, S for social and cultural, T for technology, L for legal, and E for ecological. It means environment, right? So a tool to analyze a 6 macro environmental factors that is affecting our business. So political, like government influence, economics, like financial factors, as we have discussed, and social cultural about society's impact, technology changes, legal like new laws and regulation, and ecological means some environmental factors. So we are going to analyze the macro environment factors, that is political, economic, social, cultural, technological, legal, and ecological. That is the meaning of PESTLE analysis. All right. So let's see one question about PESTLE analysis. That is actually a question from 2024 January question. B question, assess the business environment of Siri Motorhouse Private Limited using the PESTLE analysis. What do you have to do? You have to put a heading for political, economical, social, and technological, and ecological, and legal. Then you have to write the opportunities and threats, because all the PESTLE, we are going to analyze the macro environment. So you have to write about the opportunities and threats from the case study. That's it. Let's read the question. Siri Motor House Private Limited is engaged in sale of brand new and used vehicles, and it has 4 branches in Colombo, Kaluthara, Kandi, and Dehivala, operated as a car sales. Atula Srivardhan started this business about 4 decades ago. It means 40 years ago. As a sole proprietorship, at that time he had only Dehivala car sale. Later, Atula incorporated the business as a private limited liability company by appointing his wife, son, and himself as directors of the business. With that, Siri Motorhouse Private Limited was able to obtain loan capital from several financial institutions. Further, they entered into contracts with 2 leasing companies to provide leasing facilities to their customers. Right? During the recent 3-year period, they faced different issues with the COVID-19 pandemic. Right? So COVID-19 pandemic, they are going to introduce so much of threats, right? The Easter attack and the economic crisis resulting from the political instability. So they are talking about political instability, that is political environment. They are talking about the economic crisis, that is economical environment. The Easter attack problem, right? COVID-19 pandemic, those are natural disasters. No, COVID-19 is a natural disaster, right? So we can categorize these problems. All vehicle imports were banned by the government. So this is going to be the political government policy in March 2020. This resulted in increasing the cost of used vehicle in the country by 100% or more. With the increased living cost, drastic decrease of sales were evident in the car sales of the Siri Motorhouse Private Limited. So it's created so much of threats. Atula had to request from the financial institution to reschedule their loan facilities because he doesn't have income. The staff of all car sales were reduced. And for several months, the salaries of the remaining staff were paid from the personal savings of Atula due to no sales at any car sales. As a survival strategy, Shanaka, the son of Atula Srivardhana, who is also a director of the company, came up with the idea of starting a vehicles remodeling business. They targeted the owners of the vehicles who want to change their vehicle but who cannot go for a new vehicle due to the import restrictions, or who do not have enough money due to the economic crisis. Right? The survival strategy emerged as a success with the creative ideas of Shanaka, who had contacts with the small scale automobile re engineering companies, enabled them to have easy access to necessary skills, expertise, and required spare parts and components. Clearly, we can identify the political factor, economic factor, social factor, technological factor, ecological factor, as well as the legal factor. Let's see how it answered. Here, see the political factors. Government support for the business. If there is a government support, it's a political factors. There is an import restriction, so that is a political factors because import is banned. Economic factors, the ban on the import of vehicles, exchange rate problems. Socio-cultural, the social recognition of the motor car users, lifestyle of people. Even though they didn't pick any item specifically from the case study, generally they are talking here, right? Technological factors, the modern techniques used for vehicle remodeling, frequent changes in the technology. Ecological factors, the concerns over the environmental pollution due to the vehicle usage, material are disposed. The legal factors are Company Act, Inland Revenue Act. So they are expecting not the exact answers from these case studies. They are expecting whether you can write some factors in the political, ecology, economic, social, and technology, and ecological and legal, and just link something here. That's enough, right? Right. So with that, let's move to the macro environment forces, right? So to write the macro environment forces, you must need some idea. What are the factors in the demographic environment, economic, social, and cultural, as well as technological environment? You know, normally the population side, right? The birth rate, growth rate, the gender distributions, the education level, the ethnic composition. It means the how many Muslim peoples and singular people, like ethnic composition. These are under the demographic environment, right? All the statistics about population that affect market size as well as the needs, right? For example, in Eastern Province, there is a city called Katankudi. The large Muslim population, right? It means demand for halal products. That is from demographic environment, my dear. There is a huge demand for the halal products because Muslims they eat halal products. At the same time, young population there. Young population means more schools and tuition classes. There's an opportunity. So if the population is growing, it means it is opportunity for the new businesses. That is demographic environment. It's all about the population, the age, gender, education level, ethnic composition. And let's talk about the economic environment a bit. It means the financial conditions that will affect the people's ability to buy, and it will affect the businesses cost also. Inflation, it means rising prices, interest rates, the cost of borrowing. Talk about savings, how much people save, exchange rates, the currency values, government charges, that is taxes. You know, when the inflation is high in an environment, in the economic environment, customers buy less because the purchasing power is less. They don't have income. They have to buy only the essential goods for the surviving because the prices are too much, right? The business cost is increasing. They have to increase the price again. The profit margins are very low because of the inflation. Let's talk about social and cultural environment. It means the society's beliefs and the customs that influence the buying behavior of the consumers, like personal beliefs, their norms, values, religions, attitude, cultural festivals. During the Hajj season, travel agencies they get very busy. They are having so much of business for them. In the Eid season, clothing stores are, the sales are huge, right? Friday prayers, it means businesses adjust their lunch hours in Fridays. This is social cultural environment. At the same time, the technological environment, what this means, how new technology changes the business operations, like innovations, information technology, resource scarcity, environmental pollution, right? So, not environmental pollution, natural resources availability. I think it's mixed with natural environment also, right? Let's see it in the actual notes area. As I mentioned earlier, demographic means the population size, the growth rate, gender distribution, education level, ethnic composition. These are the factors. And the economic environment, the factors are going to be the inflation rate, interest rate, savings, exchange rate, taxes, right? And the social cultural environment, personal beliefs, norms, values, religions, attitudes, cultural festivals, and technological environment. It's all about innovation, information technology, research and development, robotics, AI. That is technology. You know, for example, there is a technology called GPS technology. It's shows how three-wheeler drivers works. Now they have GPS and they are doing pick me, Uber drive. Online banking. It reduced the visited hours for the bank, right? And there is the introduction of point of sales machines. It means even small shops there can accept card payments now. Right. Zahra is asking a question. What sir norms means? Norms means like a kind of belief, a belief system they are having. The people having the norms like belief system like ghosts are still exist, and they will go to people who is having like ghost jinn like that. So that's a norms. These people are believing, right? So it's technological environment. And let's talk about a bit about natural environment. So under the natural environment, we have the factors like natural resources availability, the environmental pollution. It means the physical environment and natural resources. It will affect our business, right? Natural resources availability, environmental pollution, the resource scarcity, the weather condition, the climate, the topography, right? Like this. For example, the tea estates actually in the hill country due to the climate. That's a natural environment. And also the cinnamon cultivation, it is only in the specific regions. The beach hotels are on the coastal areas only. The gem mining in Ratnapura, this is actually the natural environment. It is giving the opportunities, right? And let's talk about the sixth one, that is political and legal environment, right? So government regulations, political stability, country policies, pressure groups, it will come under this category, right? What this means, the government decisions and laws, it will shape business operations, right? Import bans, it will affect some spare parts business if they ban the car parts import, right? In election periods, it will create some uncertainty in businesses because the investors, they don't know which government will come and which kind of policies they will have, which kind of taxes they are going to introduce. Is it going to be beneficial for our business or not? There is uncertainty in the election periods. And if they come up with new regulation, it will require compliance cost. If the central bank is issuing new listing rules, new rules and regulations for the banks and financial institutions, that's a headache for the business, right? So those are under the political as well as the legal environment. And let's talk about a global environment. So global environments, it's talking about global competition, free international trade, foreign investments, the international organization, the global brands, right? What this means, the worldwide factors that will affect the local businesses, right? For example, Chinese products compete with our local manufacturer. See the town, all the toys, kids' toys are from Chinese people. So Chinese products compete with the local manufacturers. And there are international franchises enter the Sri Lankan market, like KFC, Pizza Hut. And still, we will have export opportunities for a Middle East for halal products, right? So this is from global environment. So my dears, why I am keeping these factors for you to write in the PESTLE, okay? When a question is going to ask about pestle analysis, like we have seen here, you want to know some two, three factors under political factor, economical, socio-cultural, technological, ecological, and legal factors, and just connect that factors with the case studies if you have the time. Even though you can get the full marks if you write two, three factors, right? And let's talk about the another model to analyze, that is step model, right? So SWOT and PESTLE analysis are the main model or tool to analyze the business environment. There is an alternative model called step. So in the step, very simple, the D is equal to demographic. Otherwise, the other the same. The economic forces for the E, socio-cultural for the S, technology and ecological only. We are having the demographic, but we don't have the political environment and legal environment. That is step model. There is nothing else. Okay. So in step, we will analyze demographic, economic, socio-culture, technology, ecological, and political, not a legal environment. So that is DESTEP, step, right? That's simply you want to know. And enact laws influencing the business functionality, right? Taxes, wages, regulations, and permits. When we government is enacting new laws, it will affect the business functionality because business has to pay the taxes, business has to pay the minimum wages, they have to take the permits. So for the permits, they have to pay. There are rules, regulations. So we have to understand the business environment analysis and how we can analyze that. Right. Let's talk about the 2.6 Porter's five forces analysis. This is also one of the important area, like stakeholder mapping by Mantello. Now Porter's five forces analysis. What is this? Porter's five forces analysis is a method used to analyze the competitive forces. That's an important word. Let me highlight that. Competitive forces in an industry and identifying the factors that shape the competition, profitability, market dynamics. So that is Porter's five forces analysis. We are going to analyze five forces actually, right? We are going to analyze actually five forces of competitive forces, and we are going to analyze that. That is Porter's five forces analysis. It's a method to analyze the competitive forces in an industry, right? It means, my dears, it's a method to understand our competitive forces. It's created by Michael Porter. This tool will help businesses to understand the competition beyond just direct competitors. For example, sorry, for example, you want to open a new phone shop, but you need to understand the five different competitive forces. That is the five forces competition, my dears, introduced by Michael Porter. So Porter's models identify five key competitive forces that is influencing every business and industry. So the main thing is he's gonna introduce five key competitive forces. Let me highlight that word. Five key competitive forces. You have to remember these five key competitive forces. Definitely, it will be in your examination. So it will be threat of new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of buyers, threat of new entrants, threat of substitute products. Okay. Let's explain this one by one. So these forces collectively determines the industry profitability and competitive strategies, right? Let's talk about the five forces now. Threats of new entrants to the industry. So this is the one of the five competitive force. When a new business enter an industry, It means, for example, in the AAT education industry, in specifically AAT education in English medium industry, digital accounting is entering. You are going to be our batch. So when new business enter an industry, the competition is intensifies. New entrants can reduce the profitability because they will attack the market. If they are going to give the product in a very good quality than existing in the market in an innovation manner, absolutely the customers, the students will attract. So if the competition is intensifies, the new entrants can reduce the profitability of the other companies and the market share of the existing business, because if it is an AAT education industry, there is almost 15,000 students entire Sri Lanka. So all the Sri Lankan institutes, they will compete for these 15,000 people of market, right? So the market share will be reduced, increase, right? According to the effort, according to the marketing, right? So the threat of new entrants to the industry, it will determine the profitability and competitive strategy of the market, right? That is one of the force. So when new businesses enter an industry, the competition is intensifies. So the new entrants can reduce the profitability and market share. That's important, right? So can reduce the profitability and market share for the existing business model if they come up with a solid strategy. So the factors increasing the threat of new entrants, right? Let's talk about that. So there are some factors, it will increase the threat from the new entrants. If the competition, it means from the new entrants, for example, from digital accounting, right? If they have small capital requirement to enter the market, for example, in the online education industry, if we need small capital requirement to enter the market, yes, definitely it's going to intensify because everyone can enter the market, right? So it will increase the threat for the new entrants. If the market nature is only small capital is required, so then it will intensify the threat of the new entrants. How easy it is for the new businesses to enter your market and compete with you, right? When the new business enter, the competition increases. So the new entrants, they can reduce your market share. They will force you to lower your prices. They will reduce the overall profitability, right? And existing businesses lack influence over the new entrants. So when established businesses, it means the already, if they established a good education system, but they cannot control the influence of the new player, it lowers the entry barriers and it will increase the competition, right? That's the second thing, right? So existing businesses lack influence, they can't stop the newcomers, they don't have the influence with the people. And the potential loss of patent rights, trademarks, and the brand loyalty, right? For example, you don't have the patents for your method, you don't, so that those the new entrants, they don't need to take some special license or permits from the governments. Definitely they are going to come with you. At the same time, your brand loyalty is very low, your customers will go, there is no loyalty. So the potential loss for your patent rights, trademarks, and the brand loyalty, and the minimal government regulations affecting the entry as well. There is no special permits needed for that particular industry, then everyone can come. There's a huge threats from new entrants. And the lower customer switching cost to alternative products. If the customer is just switching from your product to the other product and there is no much cost for him, he will definitely choose product A from you rather than product B. Otherwise, if your product is product A, he just ignore it and he will just switch to the product B because there is no special effort or no special cost for him. The switching cost is low. So customers, they can easily change the suppliers, like switching from one grocery to another. Then, if that's the case of your industry, then definitely there will be a threat of new entrants. and similarity between existing and new entrant products, right? So, similarity, the same kind of products they are launching with the low prices, then there is a threat from the new entrants. It's heavy threat because the new business they can offer the same things with a little price. At the same time, the industry's availability of economies of scale for the new entrants. Even the new entrants, they can buy large raw materials quickly and they can get the same discount as you. They definitely have a threat. So these are the factors it will decide whether you will receive a high competition force from the new entrants or not. Right? So you have to remember the factors: small capital requirement to enter the market, existing businesses lack the influence over the new entrants, and potential loss of patent rights, trademarks, and brand loyalty. These are the cases the new entrants will give you tough for you, right? That is one of the competitive force he is explaining. And let's talk about the second one, the bargaining power of suppliers, right? It means strong suppliers, your suppliers, they can significantly influence the competition. They affect the businesses by charging the higher prices for their resources. So if they are charging the higher prices for the resources, you are using that as an input, definitely your cost of production is going to increase. Then you have to increase your price, otherwise you have to reduce your profit margin. So the bargaining power of suppliers. So strong suppliers can significantly influence the competition. They affect businesses by charging higher prices for the resources. So they will reduce your profitability. And there are some conditions. It will decide whether the strengthening, the bargaining strength is high from the supplier or not. For example, only few suppliers are there, right? If you want to change or switch the suppliers, the cost is high, right? Suppliers have the control to that key resources, right? They have the license to obtain that raw materials. Not other people have that license. Then they have the bargaining power. And also only few substitutes for that particular material. You cannot switch that material, right? So let's talk about that. The first one is limited number of suppliers, right? If it is limited number of suppliers, for example, only one flour mill in the area, let's think about, they will decide your business, right? So bakeries must accept their prices if they have limited number of suppliers, only one flour mill. So the supplier have the bargaining power. He will decide the price. He will decide which time they have to provide the service. And the suppliers are large scale and capable of forward integration. What is this? The suppliers are very large organization and very powerful organization. They can dictate the terms. They will say, no, we cannot issue 1,000 kilograms. We will issue only 200 kilograms. They are very powerful, right? They might even start some competing with you. Sometimes forward integration. That's the meaning of forward integration here. Forward integrations means rather than providing the supply, the raw material for you, they will start your business and they will create the product or services with their own, materials. Then bargaining power of supplier is huge. And only few substitutes available. Give me a minute. Right? Let's talk about few substitutes available. So few substitutes means they can't easily switch to alternatives. Only few substitutes. And suppliers control the scarce production factors. As I mentioned earlier, my dears, the raw materials are very rare or some specialized skills needed to get that particular supplier only having that, then he has the bargain power. And high switching cost between the suppliers. It's very expensive to change the suppliers, right? Because sometimes need new equipment or training to change and find the suppliers. Then the power is with them. They will decide the competitiveness in the market. They will decide the price of the raw materials. Actually, indirectly, they are the people deciding your product price through their input price. So that is the second competitive force. And let's talk about the bargaining power of buyers or customers. Our customers, the people who are buying our products or services, if they have more control, the buyers influence the competition by demanding the lower prices or higher product quality. That's the problem. If our customers are demanding for the lower prices, otherwise with the same price with a higher quality product, then it will limit our business profits. Because for the higher product quality, we have to spend much money as a cost. So absolutely it will reduce the profit. If they demand the lower prices, absolutely we have to reduce the profit margin. So if they're determining the lower prices or higher product quality, then they have the bargaining power. They will create the competitiveness, right? So how much the power do your customers have to demand the better prices or the better quality? So strong buyers always, my dears, they will demand the lower prices. They will demand for the higher quality. They will play competitors against each other. They are the persons, and they will reduce your profits. So the factors strengthening the buyer power, right? Let's decide that. If you have the few buyers or few customers, they are the only people purchasing your largest volume. As I mentioned earlier, from your 100% of your sales, 60-70% of your sales is only from these three people. Then they have the bargaining power, because they know very well, if we are not buying from him, he will lose the 70-80% of the sales. So they will dictate the prices, they will dictate your terms and conditions, right? So one big customer, they could demand big discounts, because you cannot lose that customer, right? So buyers capable of backward integrations. What does means backward integration threat? Buyers, they could make it themselves. Forward integration means the supplier, he can introduce his own product or services like our one with a raw material power, because he is the one only having that raw materials. Same time, if the buyer have the backward integration, it means he can create the same product like us. Then also the buyer's bargain power is high, right? That is backward integration threat. And few buyers relative to suppliers, right? So then also problem. Very few buyers, right? So buyers have the choices and low cost of switching between the products. Customers easily, they can replace you. Easy to change the supplies, right? And let's talk about high availability of substitute products. So like your products, the same usage, there are a lot of products are giving, simply they will replace you. And the buyer's price is very sensitive. If you increase your price by 1 or 2 rupees, if they are going to reduce the purchase of your products, it means the price sensitive, then the bargaining power is with buyer. My dears, the large supermarket chains, they have the power. They buy in huge quantities. They could import directly the raw materials. Many suppliers available. So these are the factors strengthening the buyer power. So that is the third forces. So you have to understand the threat of new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, and bargaining power of buyer or customers. Students, the prayer adhan is going on. Give me 2 minutes time. I will resume the session once the azan finished. Right. So that is all about bargaining power of buyers or customers. Let's talk about the threat of substitute product, right? That's the fourth competitive forces. The substitute products, it means the product that is giving the same utility, same usage like our product. So substitute products are different products that meeting the similar customer needs. When switching cost between the substitutes are lower, they impact our businesses, right? So substitute products are different products meeting similar customer needs. So I'll give you examples, right? Some examples are here. Diesel versus petrol. It's high switching cost because low substitution. The substitution is low, right? The high switching cost is there, right? As well as the tea versus coffee. It's low switching cost, right? So the substitution is high, right? So you have to understand high switching cost means they cannot switch just from diesel to petrol for their vehicle. So it's low substitution. It means they cannot easily change diesel for the petrol, right? Same time for the tea versus coffee, this is very low switching cost. So they can switch very simply for the tea, for the coffee, right? So you have to understand if the switching cost is high, it means substitution is low. If the switching cost is low, it means high substitutions, right? So the low switching cost increase the bargaining power of customers because you don't have the choice. They have the power, right? So low switching cost increase the customer power as well as they will increase the competition, right? So that's all about the fourth threat of substitute products. So what this means by substitute products threats means, it means, my dears, how easily can customers switch to different products that serve the same need. For example, bus versus three-wheeler, tea versus coffee, rice versus bread. You know, that's it. So customers, they will easily change you. They will must keep prices competitive, right? Somehow we have to differentiate our product. If the substitute is very high, somehow you have to tell the customers we are different, right? Sometimes, no, that's enough, I think. Okay, let's move to the rivalry among existing competitors. It means the competitive intensity between the existing customers, right? So competition among existing businesses to capture the market share, it will significantly limits the profitability because there are so many players providing the products or services for the same group of customers. It means same market. Then they will compete with each other in the quality, in the price. So they will reduce the price, reduce the price. Then there's no margin. So the competition, if it is a competition among the existing businesses to capture the market share, is significantly limits the profitability. So what are the factors increasing the rivalry between the existing competitors is high number of competitors in the market. It means high number of people are providing the same services or same level of products without any differentiation. Then the profitability is going to be very less. The competition is going to be very less for that particular industry. And high exit barriers from the market, right? It means it's very expensive to close the business even. You cannot just go and exit. The liquidation process is very huge. It's very expensive, right? Even if it is unprofitable, you have to stuck in the competition. You cannot go even. And declining or negative industry growth. That industry is not growing. Declining market. The market share, it means the people who want that product or services year by year, it's reducing. Then you cannot do business with this negative industry growth, right? It's a declining market. You cannot fight for the shrinking customer base. Okay, Rakavi is asking, sir, I didn't understand the word rivalry. It means competition. Simply competition, my dears. That's a fancy word for the competition. right? So similar, easily substitutable products among competitors. There are similar products and it is easily very substitutable products among the competitors. Then only it's a problem. It's hard to differentiate. They will compete mainly on the price. Then the profitability is very low for the company. And competitors have similar market scale, right? This is also a problem. Similar size, right? And the sixth one, low customers loyalty level. Customers switch easily, just declining your products. So these are things will decide the intensity with the existing competition, right? So you have to remember these five forces, my dears. Definitely, sometimes they will ask this question: what are the five forces of competition as per the, that person's name, Porter's, right? So threat of new entrants to the industry, the bargaining power of suppliers, the bargaining power of buyers, threat of substitute products, as well as the rivalry. It means the competition among existing competitors, right? So that's all about the five forces competition. And let's see why it is important, why we have to study this. The reason is this model helps us to understand the competitive position we have. Are we in the market that's having too much competition? If it is too much competition, there is no profitability. So we can understand our competitive position. Are we differentiate our product? How we are different? How we can reduce the substitute effect? How we can differentiate our product? So it's help us to understand the competitive position, and it will analyze industry attractiveness. If the industry is having too much businesses, too much of competitors are providing that goods or services, we don't need to go there because we cannot earn profit. So we have to analyze the industry attractiveness, and we have to develop some effective competitive strategies. If we know the competition, only we can compete with strategies, anticipate and respond to competitive threats, right? So this model helps, as I said earlier, it will help us to understand our competitive position in the business, right? Which position we are actually, where you stand in the market actually, right? And the second one, as I told you, analyze the industry attractiveness. Is this good industry to enter? It will answer that question. And you can develop some effective competitive strategy, right? Like how to compete effectively with the existing competitors, existing competitive forces, and anticipate and respond to competitive threats, right? So there are some problems, it will come. So before it arrives, we will ready, right? And then leverage the industry opportunities for the profitability. You will identify the gaps in the market, and you will fill it by your product or services. So by evaluating these five forces, my dears, the business, right? The business can strategically plan and sustain a competitive advantage in the market. Competitive advantage means they can create core capabilities as well as core competencies. It means other people cannot copy, or other people cannot achieve that. As you know, as digital accounting, we have the laser focus, my dears. No one can touch with my intention, with my consistency, right? No one can touch. I'll promise you, right? With this much of intensity, no one can provide the AAT classes. You will see the future growth because you are going to be our output, right? You will see the growth in very near future because that is the competitive advantage we have created. We have the core capabilities with our team and the unique resources that cannot be easily created. My systems, my plans, my strategies, right? How we are leveraging the tools, no one can touch. You will see that in the near future. right? So that is something competitive advantage. If we want to create the competitive advantage, we have to analyze our competitive forces, right? So that's what it's very important to utilize the Porter's five forces model. So that's all about the Porter's five forces analysis, right? Now, let's move to the 2.7, the influence of information and communication technologies on the business environment. How the business environment is impacted with the ICT, simply. How computers, internet, and digital technology are changing the way the business operates, right? So let's see that. My dears, the advancement of ICT is a primary challenge for the businesses in the 21st century. It's creating profound effects on the business environment. How? See the efficient information processing. My dears, in systems, in ICT advancement, we can handle large volumes of data in GB, TB with a high speed, with a high accuracy. For an example, if you are equipped with cloud-based accounting systems right now in 2025, 26, in 27 also, like accounting firms, they can process thousands of transactions in seconds. Before computers, it takes weeks and months. So the efficient information processing, right? At the same time, digital information management. We are now managing all the information digitally. No more rooms full of files. We have safer storage in computers, cloud storage. We can access our business data from anywhere in the world. Even our company burns down with fire, the data is safe in the cloud computers. You know, at the same time, the technology is changing, right? The technology changes so fast. It's very expensive to keep upgrading with the tools and systems. Every day, one is coming. You will buy new point of sale systems. The last year you have already bought, but it's already outdated. There's a new system now, right? Like that, there's a robotic automation. Machines are doing the human work right now more accurately, very few mistakes. Especially artificial intelligence is taking, especially the artificial intelligence AI robots, they are doing the human work more accurately than the humans with a few mistakes, even no mistakes. So major garment factories are now using the automated cutting machines. They reduces waste and improves the quality, right? So the importance of information and communication technology, these are the topics we have to cover. The first one, as I mentioned earlier, the information processing is very efficient than ever, right? Handling the large volumes of metadata, high speed and accuracy in the data processing. At the same time, the second one is digital information management, the replacement of traditional paperwork, right? With the digital storage systems, enhancement information safety through secure storage, cloud computing. It allows large scale data storage at minimal cost with easy access to anywhere, as I mentioned. And the technological change, frequent ICT developments. It shortened the lifespan of the existing system. The last year purchase system is outdated because there's a frequent ICT developments. We have to continue to upgrade, and it's very costly. It's increasing our operational cost, right? And the fourth one is, as I mentioned, it is a robotic automation. It's reduced reliance on human labor. We don't need to rely on human people. It increased accuracy, zero defects, and enhanced the product quality. And the fifth one, virtualization and remote work. This is the huge area, right? Work from home possibilities are available right now. No need for physical presence. You can remember during COVID situations, the accounting staff worked from home. Business continued without office. So virtual businesses and workstations enable the remote employment. At the same time, employees can work from home without physical presence at the office. So these are virtualization. It's enabled by the ICT development. And the popularity of digital products, right? It increased consumer preferences for the digital products like software, videos, and publications. People prefer the digital products over the physical. right? For example, the CD shops, DVD shops are closed right now because the Netflix, Amazon Prime, because of the popularity of digital products. Everyone streams the music online right now with a YouTube Music, with other streaming platform. So these are the popularity of digital products. So these are the advancement or the impact of area in the business, right? So you have to understand these things: virtualization, remote work, robotic automation, digital information management, efficient in information processing are the influence of information technology from the technology environment, actually, right? And let's talk about the 2.8, identifying complexities in the business environment and the business location. How we are going to identify the complexities in our business environment, especially in our business location. What this means? It means, my dears, we are going to understand how complicated or simple a business environment is, right? We will have sometimes static environment, complex environment, or dynamic environment, or simple environment. Let's talk about a little bit. According to Robert Duncan, 1979, business environments are divided based on, you know, this is the criteria: number and diversity of environmental factors, right? At the same time, static or dynamic nature. From the number and diversity, we are going to classify the environmental factors as a simple environment as well as the complex environment, right? So simple environment means few and very similar factors. Complex environment means many factors, as the time very diverse factors. So few and similar, and complex at the same time many diverse factors. Let me explain to you very simply. Simple environment means there are very few and similar factors to consider, my dears. It means the traditional products like rice, right? Sorry, like selling salt, it's always needed. It doesn't change much. That is very simple environment. But like a complex environment like smartphones, the technology is changing. There are diverse factors. The fashion, right? Fashion industry, that's a complex environment. And static or dynamic environment. Static environment means the environmental factors do not change significantly. Dynamic environment means the environmental factors change very rapidly, quickly, right? So it means simply, as I mentioned, traditional products like rice, that is static environment. Things don't change much. But the dynamic environment, as I mentioned, fashion, technology, that is in the dynamic environment. So simply, this is a concept you don't need to worry much because these are not going to test much. And the classification of business environment, you know, just you remember, static environment means there are low number of factors. The factors are very similar and stable. The risk level is very low. This is example is market for short. And simple environment, few but continually changing factors. Sometimes the risk level is going to be moderate for that kind of business. Example is fashion industry. Even if it is simple, but the risk level is moderate. And complex business, there are many diverse but stable factors, then the risk level is moderate, like tuition class market. And the environment is dynamic, there are many diverse continuously changing factors, the risk level is high, like mobile phone market. But you don't need to worry about this. If you don't understand this topic, they're not going to test you much, right? So why it is important for the managers? Each businesses encounters unique environmental complexities, right? Because, my dears, even two grocery shops on the same street, they differ. One might serve locals, others serves tourists. So serving the local people is a very simple environment, but serving the tourist people is a very complex environment, even in the same street, right? So even with the similar geographic and locations, we might have the simple environment or we might in the complex environment. And managers must prepare differently based on the specific business environment. If you are in the simple environment, standard procedures work, no problem. But if you are in the complex environment, you need flexibility and quick adaptation of technologies. right? So that's the importance to understand whether are we on the complex environment or dynamic environment or simple environment, right? That's about 2.8. And let's talk about the knowledge management and learning organizations. That's an interesting concept, right? So what this means, how businesses learn and use the knowledge to survive and grow. That is the concept of learning organization, right? Because every business, they have the knowledge within that, with their employees, with their CEOs, right? So businesses must continually learn, adapt, and respond to the environmental changes, right? So that is something from knowledge management, right? So knowledge management means creation of a learning culture. Employees encouraged to acquire and share knowledge. So it's a creation of learning culture, right? That's the knowledge management. So creating a culture where everyone learns from our organization, sharing the knowledge across the organization. For example, if there is a restaurant staff, he can share the customer feedback with other employees. And also everyone can learn what customers like, dislike. So it will improve the service continuously. So that is something knowledge management, how we create the knowledge, how we transfer the knowledge, how we store the knowledge. That's a concept of learning organization. So what are the requirements for the learning organization? There are three things. The first one is team based structure, empowered employees, and open information. It means, my dears, if we want to create a learning organization, these are the requirements. The first one is we should have a team based structure. People work in teams, not alone. The synergy will come. Teams will share the knowledge, right? Empowered employees. We have to empower the employers. Sometimes the workers can make some decisions. We have to encourage them to try new things. We have to encourage them to learn from their mistakes. At the same time, open information sharing. No secrets between departments. Everyone should know what's happening in the company. Sales team should tell production about the customer complaints. Because production team, they don't involve with the customer relationship, but the sales team is involved. So the sales team should communicate the production complaints from the customers. So then only the production improve their products. So there should be these three things: the team-based structure, empowered employees, and open information is sharing to create a, a learning organization. So the team-based structure means collaborative teams to facilitate learning. Empowered employees means empowerment encourages the innovation and continuous learning. And open information sharing means transparent and open sharing of information within the organization. And let's talk about the virtual organizations. The virtual organizations mean, my dears, it's everything in online, right? So virtual organization it's a rapid growth due to the technological advancements. So the employees geographically dispersed. It means I'm in Sri Lanka, other people is in Australia, another one is US, another one is UK, Ireland. So employees geographically dispersed, connected through the technology and the virtual platforms. So there is a rapid growth due to the technological advancements. So employees geographically dispersed, now connected. That's something virtual organization. It means companies where people work together online, not in the office. That is virtual organization. It's growing very rapidly because employees now scattered geographically, right? They are connected through internet. If you're working in a software company, developers are in Colombo, designers are in Kandy, customer services in Jaffna, all work together in online, right? That is virtual organizations. And the organizational behavior challenge. If you are doing the 100% online, it means the virtual organization, still there are some challenges. So the modern organization face some multiple behavioral challenges, especially from the Gen Z people. The workforce diversity. When you are doing the virtual organization and different cultural people from the different nations, different religions, different language, different cultures, that's the challenge. And ethics and social responsibility. We have to do the right thing. not just making profit, right? It is increasing. At the same time, changing the workforce demographics. Nowadays, more women are working. Younger generation is different from the older generation now, right? And improving the quality standards. These are organizational behavior challenges. We have to improve the quality standards because customers they expect better quality. International standards are required now. At the same time, there is a challenge from globalization. We have to compete with international companies, with international brands. We have to understand the global market. At the same time, organizational justice. Now, people are expecting a fair treatment for employees. There shouldn't be any discrimination. So, to address these challenges, managers are adapting new managerial approaches, right? So, these are the organizational behavior challenges in knowledge management and learning organization, even in virtual organization situations, right? And let's talk about 2.10, that is about impact of globalization on business expenses. What are the impact on globalization in business expenses? It means, my dears, you know how worldwide connections affect what businesses spend and earn. That is the impact of globalization on business expenses, right? My dears, the world becoming one big connected market now, right? Like in this picture. So the globalization means countries. Give me 1 minute. Right. So as I told you, the world becoming one big connected market. So globalization, the countries are trading more and more with each other. Ideas and culture, it's spreading worldwide. At the same time, the businesses are operating internationally. Think of how KFC from America, it operates in Colombo. How? You know, how Sri Lankan tea is drunk in England because of the globalization, right? So, my dears, there are changes. Let's talk about that. So, the introduction to globalization. So, globalization means increasing interconnectedness through trade and cultural exchange, right? It means we more connected now. A shift towards an integrated, interdependent global economy. It's like a global village right now, right? And let's talk about the significant changes due to globalization. There are so much of changes are coming in the globalization. Let's talk about one by one. The first one is expansion of international trade, right? It means we are doing more international trade now. From Amazon, from Alibaba, we are exporting, we are importing because of globalization. And increased international financial capital flows, FDI, and the sovereign bonds, right? International financials are coming to Sri Lanka. From Sri Lanka, it's moving abroad. So money flow between the countries. FDI means foreign direct investment. At the same time, the third one, developments of global brands like Sony, Google, Nike. We are working and using the global brands right now. That is because of the globalization. And shifts in production like outsourcing, offshoring, benefiting the developing countries. It means, my dears, even though we don't have the resources, we can outsource our business processes to some experts companies. That's the outsourcing means, right? These are very good benefit for the developing countries like Sri Lanka, right? And increased labor migration affecting the wage levels. So the labors are, you know, They are moving for better opportunities because of globalization and emerging economic powers. China, India, it's growing now. Brazil, right, because of the globalization. So these are the significant changes due to globalization. And let's talk about the globalization of markets. Merging separate national markets into global marketplace. It means the local markets now becoming a one big global market, right? It is easier. Cross-border trade leads to global consumer preferences and convergence, right? It means, you can see examples like same product sold worldwide, similar customer preferences, Coca-Cola in every shop, Sony PlayStation in Wellavata, Washington, candy everywhere, McDonald's, same taste worldwide. Your cousin in Dubai uses same iPhone as you. So because of globalization, easier cross-border trade, right? And globalization of products. What this means? It means we are making products using the resources from the many countries. Companies sourcing the raw materials globally for the better quality, lower cost, and special expertise, right? The aim is to reduce the cost and enhance the product quality, functionality, competitiveness. You know about Boeing 777, that is the airplane name. The parts from Japan, Singapore, Italy. And there's another Boeing 787, 65% outsourced internationally. They are getting some parts from one country, some parts from another country. So like that, to reduce the quality, we are sourcing globally. iPhone is manufactured in India because of the labor cost, as well as in the China. So that's the globalization of products is now happening, right? For the aircraft, parts from Japan, for the wings part from Japan, the doors part from Singapore, right? It's assembled in America. For example, if you are wearing a shirt, the cotton from India, it's sewn in Bangladesh, the buttons from China, it's sold in Sri Lanka. That's the globalization of products right now. And the emergence of global institutions, right? There are so much of agreements, World Trade Organization, IMF, World Bank, United Nations. They have created to manage and regulate the global markets, not just Sri Lanka, right? Let's talk about few organizations. The General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, we call it as GATT, right? It means General Agreement on Tariffs and Trades. It's created to manage and regulate the global markets, right? And the World Trade Organization is created. Why? To set some trade rules, resolve some trade disputes between the countries. And IMF is contributing massively for the Sri Lankan regrowth. International Monetary Fund, they lends money to countries. Sri Lanka borrows from IMF, right? At the same time, the World Bank funds the development projects, highways, schools in Sri Lanka. And United Nations, they promote the peace and development. It's founded in 1945, actually. 193 members they are having. The headquarters in the New York. They maintain the international peace and security, right? So these are the organizations created because of the globalization, because countries are interconnected, so they have to manage, right? So that is the globalization. At the same time, these globalization creates opportunities as well as threats, Marius, because globalization is a external factor environment. Sometimes we will have free trade because of the trade agreements. We can have cheap labors like iPhone is manufacturing in China as well as in India because of the cheap labor. And we can have new markets. Sometimes we can expand our operations to another countries. These are the opportunities. So let's see the opportunities of the globalization first. The opportunities are, as I mentioned, we can have free trade. It means lower taxes on our imports as well as when we are export our items. So independent free trade, right? It's an opportunity. If China and India are having a free trade agreement, we can import from India without any taxes, import taxes. We can export to India without any taxes. So the consumers are going to pay less prices because there is no tax. So the free trade is an opportunity, right? And the new market is an opportunity because expansion into international markets attracting the foreign investments. You can sell to other countries. So Sri Lankan cinnamon, right? You can show to Europe people. Much bigger customer base. They will pay more in dollars. And cheap labor can hire the workers from other countries, like what Apple is doing, right? Or move your production factories to cheaper locations. Most of the urban countries, they are having factories in Sri Lanka because of the cheap location, cheaper production cost. Many call centers, they move to Sri Lanka. US companies call centers are in Sri Lanka because cheap labor, right? So outsourcing and offshoring to countries with a lower labor cost like India, Sri Lanka, and expanding the operations, the growth through merging with the international companies. We can do joint venture with a foreign company, franchising, licensing. So these are the expanding opportunities. We can partner with the foreign companies. We will have franchising opportunities with KFC, Pizza Hut. We can do joint ventures with the international companies. This is because of the globalization. It creates opportunities. Same time, it's giving the threats as well. Shifting the risk profile, my dears. It means businesses face increased exposure to geographical. Yes, Zahra. Zahra is asking a question. Sir, can you re-explain cheap labor? Cheap labor means, my dears, if you are working as a chartered accountant in Sri Lanka, you can earn maximum 2 to 5 lakhs. Okay. That is Sri Lankan rate. The same service, if you are going to do in the US or UK or in Middle East countries, you can earn that is equal to Sri Lankan rupees like 2 million or 3 million as a chartered accountant. Because Sri Lanka, the salary rate are cheap. It means very low. That is, the cheap labor. Why Apple company is shifting their factories to China? Because China, they have to pay very less amount to the workers because the population is huge. The labor supply is huge. In India as well as that's the second largest country in population. They have shifted the factory to the India. Why? Because the production cost is less since they have to produce millions of iPhones, millions of production, right? So they can keep the profit much higher. That's cheap labor. The labor rate, the salary rate is very low in India, China, like countries. So they are utilizing that, the big companies. Right, let's talk about the shifting the risk profile. It means, my dears, increase risk now because of the globalization. Since the interest rate fluctuations and the exchange rates, and there is a problem of piracy right now, right? Currency fluctuation, it will affect your cost. When the dollar prices rises, the import cost more. When you are doing some contract with a foreign company, you have to pay $5,000. At that time, if you are doing, $5,000, let's assume for that $5,000 contract, when you entered into the contract, you have to pay 300 rupees for $1. So it is around 15 million. But when you are going to pay, the dollar is, the price, it means the rupee is depreciated. Now you have to pay 350 rupees per $1 to get that $5,000. Then now you have to pay 17.5 million. So think about 15 million to 17.5 million, 2.5 million you have to pay extra to give the same $5,000 to foreign companies. So, because of the globalization, if the currency fluctuation, the exchange rates are different, then it will affect your cost of production. When dollars rises, your import cost more. You have to pay more in Sri Lankan rupees to get that dollars and pay to that client. So profit becomes unpredictable. So it is shifting the risk profile actually. And regulatory obstacles. My dear, different countries, they have the different rules. It's very hard to keep up with changes. Rapid regularly changes impact the cross-border investment profitability. Compliance cost is very increased. Because Sri Lanka have the different rule, America have the different rules. We have to compliance. There are so much of rules, regulation, tax, payments, systems, and the cultural differences. We have to manage the diverse teams. It's very challenging. Misunderstanding can occur. Challenges managing the geographically and culturally dispersed teams, different work ethics, expectations, because different people are working in the globalization. At the same time, the resource constraints, talent shortage, and competition is increased because global companies. Competition is for skilled workers now high. Everyone wants the best talent people, right? Wages may increase. So the resource constraints. You know about it, right? Meta company, Facebook company, they have acquired the open AI. It means the chat GPT, one of the key research person. I think they have paid 200 million salary, I think, for the one person to get into the Meta's super intelligence lab to create the super intelligent artificial intelligence than the chat GPT. So the talent shortage, the competition for the talented, skilled people is huge, right? That is the resource constraints created by the globalization. And it is impact on the business cost as well. The labor and material costs, it's very internationally, right? Because of the population size, skills availability, so much of things. Because larger populations may lower the wage levels. That's what in the China as well as in India, because of the population size is larger, there's a huge supply of the labors, less demand, then the low wage levels. At the same time, about skills availability, education system is creating skilled workforce. Legitimate differences, absence of welfare benefits reducing the cost. Government concession, free land, infrastructures, credit incentives, these things will impact on the business cost. How? Let me explain one by one. Population size means, my dears, India has a more people. So the wages are very lower because supply and demand for workers. If the supply is huge and the demand is less, then the people are going to work for less money. They don't have option. And the skills availability, countries with a good education, they have the skilled workers. My dear, Sri Lanka has a very well educated English speaking people, very skilled people. At the same time, legitimate differences, right? So government concession, so it will impact on the business cost. And additional opportunities of globalization, new advancement in market, it increase the competitions, right? So these are the additional benefits, new advanced markets and increased competition. It means we can access to advanced technology. There is an increase in the competition growth in weaker economics in China, right? International businesses, alliances, international assistance, and economic equality, right? So these are the additional opportunities and threats of globalization. At the same time, still we have some criticism of globalization as well. Global institutions, they favor the G8 countries. There's a countries group called G8. It means the problems and complaints about globalization. Not everyone benefits equally. That's a problem. They are giving favoritism. And developing countries influence it by powerful international bodies like IMF, World Bank. They will rule us. Sri Lanka actually ruled by IMF right now. Not with Anura Kumara Dissanayake. IMF is ruling Sri Lanka. Some nations form economic alliances separately from global institutions, right? And fear of IMF and World Bank policies restricts some nations from accepting some beneficial grants, right? Economic opens can improvise the countries due to influx of Western goods. Cultural values might be lost. Traditional industries may be die because of the globalization. So these are the criticisms still available. And let's talk about the e-commerce and virtual organization. Introduction to e-commerce, buying, selling, and marketing everything in online. So buying, selling, marketing, delivering, and servicing products online through global networks. Simply buying and selling through internet and customers who shop online, e-commerce, and the virtual customers. So electronic exchanges and digitally based organizational activities. There's a growth of virtual consumers now. People are buying goods and services. Those consumers are increasing because of online purchase without any physical interaction. That is e-commerce. And the scope of e-commerce, it involves processes from marketing to customer service using internet technology. We can use so much of system ideas, right? That's what it's increasing. Everything is e-commerce covers. Finding the customers is online, taking the orders online, processing the payment is online, delivering the products is online, even after sales service also online. So it has advantages. Businesses of any size can reach the global customers. Geographical barriers are reduced right now. And there are some categories of e-commerce as well, right? So we will learn about this in much details in upcoming sessions. It means B2B business, business to business e-commerce, right? It means in the business destination. Business is selling to business, another business is purchasing. And in the business, C2B, consumer to business, and business to consumer. Customer, it means consumer to consumer. There are so much of models here. So B2B, inter-organizational exchange like procurement, inventory payments are one business to another business, right? That is business to business. It means companies selling to other companies online. For example, textile factory, they are selling to garment manufacturers. Both are businesses. Office supply companies selling to corporate companies. Business to business transaction online. Wholesale rice millers selling to retailers. So that is business to business e-commerce. And business to consumer, direct consumer transaction, like in Amazon, Yahoo, right? Companies selling directly to customers. Daras.lk selling to you. That is B2C model. Pizza Hut online delivery, business to consumer model. You can pay the dialogue online bill payment, business to consumer directly. And there is another e-commerce model called consumer to consumer, transaction among consumers, right? It means people selling to other people online. For example, you are selling your old phone on ikman.lk. You are the one putting the advertisement. Another consumer is buying. So customer to customer e-commerce model. There is a Facebook marketplace sales. Students selling their textbooks online. These are the consumer to consumer model. And consumer to business model. Consumers form groups to leverage the buying power sometime. Demand aggregators, advocacy groups, it means simple words. Individuals, people selling to companies or groups, they are forming a buying power. For example, freelance designers, they're selling the logos to companies. There are so much of website, my dear. There's a famous website called Fiverr. That is the consumer to business. Consumers are having a group as a freelancer and they're selling their services to businesses. Photographers are selling photos to businesses. Group of consumers are negotiating for the large discounts. Those are consumers to business model. So there are a lot of more models available in the e-commerce, right? And the converging categories of e-commerce, as we have mentioned here, single interconnected e-commerce chain emerging across all categories. That is, consumers buy books, that is B2C. Amazon orders more copies from publisher, that is B2B. Publisher buys the suppliers. It means there's an interconnected. As a consumer, you buy the books from Amazon. Amazon is getting the orders or more copies from the publisher, that is B2B. The publishers, they buy supplies, this paper, ink from other business, that is B2B, right? And also consumers, they form groups for bulk purchasing. At the same time, consumers, they are reselling the used books on the eBay. So it is an interconnected model, my dears. Everything is connected, right? So that is all about the impact of globalization on business expenses, right? I think it is better to discuss this essential of e-commerce process, new trends, and customer relationship management in the next session. Hopefully, I think in the next session I will finish your 10% of the business environment. And no worries, my dears. You will gain A plus. I will guarantee for you. Okay. When we are doing past papers, you will understand, yes, these questions are like a piece of cake for me, right? Let's see all of you in the next sessions. Thank you all. Have a great day for your time, patience, everything. See all of you in the next class. Bye.